What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. So I got up at about 5:30 this morning to walk the dog, and then I fed him. But I realized I was still sleepy. I only got about 2.5, 3 hours of sleep at that time, so I went back to bed. And I got up about 10 o'clock. And after I showered and did my other necessaries, morning ritual things, I then realized, as I looked at the news, that Senator Dianne Feinstein of California had died at age 90. That wasn't necessarily shocking news in a lot of different ways, which I'll get into later on. I looked at her X account, her Twitter account. It was something about the country of Azerbaijan decimating the Armenian people of resources, hundreds of thousands of people. And the wording and the vocabulary used in this tweet made it obvious to me that she did not write this, not at this stage of her life. I'm convinced that she had dementia, mild dementia at the very least. And, I've talked about this. Look, may she rest in peace. But we're going to start seeing more and more of this. We're going to start seeing more and more of people elected to represent us literally dying before our very eyes, going through the dying process. I mean, you could see clear as day when she came back from the hospital from having shingles or whatever it was that she had. As frail as she had looked before, she could not walk. She had noticeably lost weight. She looked even more out of it. Now, it was rumors starting to swirl, back as long ago as maybe 2019 or 20, that mentally she was starting to slip. She was a person that was always very sharp, but she started forgetting where she was in the place of sentences. She forgot, what she was saying. She forgot people's names. People that she had known. She had to be reminded who these people were. Those are telltale signs of age-related memory loss at the very least, senility, and probable dementia. More likely, I'm not a doctor, but more likely, maybe something like vascular dementia. This is why we have to put an age limit on when people can serve, or at the very least, we as a people are going to have to, we're going to have to enforce that certain standing laws be enforced. Okay, I know some people don't want to lose their jobs or their status. It's probably a good job to be a staffer associated with a standing United States senator. So, what some of these people are doing, senators, representatives, I'm talking about the high-powered ones, they're probably covering up. They're doing that with Biden. The motherfucker has cliff notes. Not on a tough policy issue during a debate. That's understandable to a certain extent. No, on how to enter a goddamn room and where to sit at, who these people are in the fucking room, what the question is, and you still blow it. So we got too much of this going on, man. We saw this happen with Strom Thurmond. We saw this happen with William Rehnquist when he went through his cancer battle. He did not leave his position as Chief Justice. We saw this happen with Ruth Bader Ginsburg. She would not step down. She died in office. I mean, these people are hanging on these positions like they're regents, like their blood-born entitlement forbids them to ascend from their thrones. It's bullshit. We saw this with Robert Byrd, to the point where, you know, he couldn't pick his head up from off his fucking lap. We saw this with Ted Kennedy. The line of the Senate reduced to being a lamb. He wouldn't step down. John McCain, I don't think, stepped down. They all died in office. And what I don't like about it in those situations is a lot of them were incapacitated at the end. I just don't think I don't think you're doing your constituency a favor staying in an office where you're not able to really perform. And then, you know, the staffers are there and they're pretty much doing a job that they weren't elected to, which is basically your job. So this is why I was always doing these videos about Dianne Feinstein. She needed to step down because I could foresee this happening. I didn't think it was going to happen this soon, but the writing is on the wall. Her husband died, what was it? Was it this year? When did her husband die? Was it February this year? No, it was last year. So her husband died in February of last year. And historically, man, you know, a lot of times we have couples who've been together for decades. When one passes away, the other one, it's not too much longer that the other one dies. Doesn't always happen, but it happens a lot of times when there's these long marriages. Now we see this with Feinstein and her husband, Richard C. Blum. We saw this with George and Barbara Bush. She died in April of 2018. He didn't last a year. He died the last day of November of that year. I remember when I was a kid, Pat Nixon died in June of 1993. Richard Nixon didn't last a year. Her husband. So, you know, we see this all the time. And you take into account all the health issues that she was dealing with. Some of the things I think were never disclosed. And, you know, you can just see this coming. So, for the Senate, as of right now, the Democrats have temporarily lost a vote. Which is why, politically, many of them wanted her to step down and have a special election. Now, more than likely, I would say a 99.999999999999999% chance her successor is going to be a Democrat. I mean, California is the most liberal state in the union right now. I used to say New York and California, but California is on a whole nother level. So, let me see. Let me look that up, because I know someone's talked about this. All right, here we go. What Dianne Feinstein's death means for Senate Democrats. The Democratic majority in the Senate is even smaller with the death of Senator Dianne Feinstein of California. Feinstein died at the age of 90 on Thursday night after 3 decades in the Senate, her family announced on Friday. Feinstein, the oldest member of the Senate and longest-serving female senator, announced in February that she would retire at the end of her term. Now, I can't remember exactly when the end of her term was supposed to be. Might have been in 2024. I just can't remember exactly when her last election was. Let me see. If she got in 92, I remember she got in 92. Re-elected in 98. They have 6-year terms. Then elected again in 2004. in 2010, 2016. So, I mean, she just got reelected. She just got reelected. Okay, I see what's throwing me off now. I see what it is. In 1992, when she became senator, when she was elected to the Senate, that was a special election. It wasn't a normally scheduled election. It was a special election. So that's why there was two subsequent Senate elections in California at that time. She was elected, and Barbara Boxer was elected. So it was two women elected to the Senate in California in 1992. Plus, I remember that's the same year Carol Moseley Braun of Illinois was elected to the Senate. And I want to say that Olympia Snowe may have already been elected, or she was elected to the Senate that year as well. So, you know, they call that the year of the woman because of the record, at the time, record amount of women that were elected to Congress and other positions throughout the United States in elections that year. You know, the Senate, like I was saying, they're going to have to, Gavin Newsom's got to appoint somebody right now, because right now their margin has narrowed with her passing the Democrats to 50 to 49. Really, technically, Republicans outnumbered Democrats 47 to 49. But because of their alliance with three independents, Sinema in Arizona, Bernie Sanders in Vermont, and the other one is Angus King. I think he's in Maine. Only because of those alliances with those independents do they hold a majority, 50-49, and Sinema is sort of conservative. What the hell she want to consider herself? So, you know, it is what it is, man. Just do a brief rundown of her electoral history. Dianne Feinstein was selected or elected to the San Francisco Board of Supervisors back in the 70s. She ran for mayor a couple of times, unsuccessfully, 1971 and again in 1975. But in 1978, an opening happened for her via a tragedy. 1978 was the year that the man that beat her for mayor back in 75, George Moscone, and Harvey Milk, the same Harvey Milk that Sean Penn played in the movie, they were gunned down by a lunatic ex-co-worker, and that created an opening for Dianne Feinstein in 1979 to run for mayor. I think she was appointed mayor in 1978 after George Moscone was taken out. And she was reelected in a landslide in 1983, ran for governor in 1990 against Pete Wilson and lost in a relatively close race, but was appointed appointed senator in 1992. Well, not appointed, elected in a special election in 1992. Won by 25 points in that election. No, actually, I take that back. She won by 16 points in 1992. In 1994, the normal election for her, that was the Republican wave year. She won by about 2 points against Michael Huffington. If I remember correctly, in that race, Michael Huffington spent what was then a record amount of money for his campaign. A record amount of money was spent in that campaign. Then she ran again in 2000 because senators are elected every 6 years. She ran again in 2000 as California is becoming increasingly more liberal. She won by 19 points. In 2006, she won by 24 points. 2012, she won by 25 points. And then in 2018, maybe because of age, she won by 9 points, which is way down. Her margin was way down. Matter of fact, in an election where 11 million people voted, she only won by 900,000 votes, which in California is not a huge margin at all. But that's probably just a sign that she had to, age was catching up with this person. But anyway, hope this video ain't run too damn long. Senator Dianne Feinstein is out of here. She's gone.